Jake and I had known each other since grade school, though we were never much more than casual acquaintances. It wasn't until we both landed at the same college that we agreed to room together. At first, everything seemed fine, even easy, but then Jake began to shift in ways I couldn't ignore. His moods swung like a wrecking ball, from giddy highs to seething lows, and with them came a temper that grew uglier by the day. He became possessive, suffocating, as though he owned me. He dictated where I could go, what I should wear, even when I was allowed to leave the room. The first time I pushed back, told him to get lost, he snapped and put his hands on me. That was the moment I knew I needed out. The last fight came fast. One minute he was pacing, muttering. The next he exploded, lunging at me like a wild animal. I shoved back, caught him in the mouth with a wild swing. The shock of it gave me a second of control, but his face twisted with something darker than rage. "If you leave," he hissed, blood on his lip, "I'll find you. I'll kill you." He meant it, or at least he wanted me to believe he did. I wasn't about to let him cage me. He had the size, but I had stubbornness and fear working as one. I called my parents, told them everything, and the very next day, while Jake sat in class, I packed up my life and walked out. I didn't stop until I had the keys to a small apartment in my hand, and every scrap of my belongings shoved inside. By the time Jake returned, I was gone. The police and the college administration offered little more than sympathy. Unless Jake actually hurt me again, they couldn't do much. That meant I had to keep my head low, watch my back on campus, and live with the knowledge that he knew my schedule. Every trip to class felt like stepping into a minefield. Still, I wasn't about to quit. I wouldn't give him that victory. My parents backed me up, even if the rent stretched them thin. Dad assured me the expense was worth it, just to put distance between me and Jake. And maybe, he said, I'd even pull my grades back up. The apartment was furnished in the barest sense: sofa, bed, table, but it was mine. I spent days shifting the furniture, trying to claim the space as my own, then called home to tell Dad I was settling in. That's when Mom announced she'd be visiting. True to form, she showed up the next day, her arms loaded with pots, pans, towels, dishes, and enough little comforts to make the apartment feel less like a halfway house and more like a home. But it wasn't just household goods she carried. Over coffee, I noticed a mischievous grin tugging at her lips. It was the kind of look that meant she had a plan, one I probably wouldn't like. "Your father and I have been talking," she began, stirring her cup as though the words might dissolve into the coffee. "We know this is a mess, Ryan, but answer me something. Do you remember that party back in junior high, the one where you went dressed as a girl?" Heat rose in my face. "Yeah, I remember." "Why?" Her grin widened. "Because nobody knew it was you, not one of those kids, and they'd known you since elementary school. You were, well, you were adorable." I groaned. "Mom, don't." "Becoming a girl, silly." She leaned in, lowering her voice as though sharing a delicious secret. "Why dismiss it right away? We still have Amy's clothes, and since she's off in the Navy, she won't miss them." "You could become Lily again." Jake would never connect the dots. I stared at her. "So let me get this straight. You want me to dress as a girl, go to classes as a girl, live as a girl?" "And why not?" she countered, unflinching. "Think about it, Jake has never seen you that way, and the police can't do anything until it's too late. This would protect you. At least give you breathing room." I rubbed my temples. "Mom, that was a one-time prank at a party. If I try this here, the second my name gets called in class, I'm finished. I'd be the laughingstock of the entire college." "You were more than convincing," she said softly. "Even Amy admitted she was jealous. And you know your build, you're not tall like your dad. You're small, fine-boned. You could pass." I tried to argue, but the truth gnawed at me. At 5'5", barely 120 pounds, I was light, slight, and closer to my mom's frame than my father's. She leaned back, watching me wrestle with it all, then played her final card. "Don't forget," she said with that sly grin. "I went to school with the registrar." Mom's stare lingered on me like a dare, but I shook my head, unwilling to give her the satisfaction of agreement. The thought of living as a girl every single day felt impossible. Too much makeup, too much pretending, too many ways to get caught. Makeup, hair, nails, gestures, bathrooms, even the way I walked. It all added up to a world I'd never trained for. And yet, beneath my protests, I knew she wasn't entirely wrong. The police had been blunt until Jake left bruises or broken bones. They couldn't step in. That left me exposed, and I hated how little power I had against him. I tried to summon some alternative, some brilliant plan to outsmart Jake without slipping into heels, but my mind came up empty. Every angle circled back to the same unsettling conclusion. My best chance of survival might be through my mother's plan. She said nothing more, only disappeared out the door and returned with 3 suitcases, plopping them at my feet. "You'll do what you think is best," she said calmly, her tone deliberately neutral. "But this should keep you going. Clothes, makeup, everything. If you need help, call me. I can be here in an hour and a half." "Thanks, Mom. I'll think about it," I muttered, though my voice lacked conviction. We shared lunch afterward, simple sandwiches, but her words echoed in my head. A girl. Me. Memories came back unbidden, Amy buzzing with excitement as she dressed me years ago, laughing as she powdered my cheeks, both of us wide-eyed when I finally looked in the mirror. I hadn't seen my own reflection. I'd seen her, a softer, younger version of Amy. At that party, no one recognized me, not even kids I'd grown up with. Instead of ridicule, I'd been flirted with. That night had jolted something awake in me, and afterward, I had dressed up more than once in secret, though I never left the house. Now those 3 suitcases sat in my apartment like ticking clocks. I already knew what I would do once Mom left. I needed to prove to myself if I still could. Before she went, Mom dropped one last bomb. "I'm getting a new car soon. Your father and I decided you should have mine. Jake doesn't know it, and it's safer. I'll drive your old clunker home and trade it in." I didn't even pretend to argue. Her car was practically new compared to my wheezing relic from high school. We traded keys, and after a hug that lingered a little too long, she drove off. An hour later, I couldn't resist anymore. I cracked open the first suitcase lingerie, blouses, skirts, neat stacks of folded fabric smelling faintly of my sister's perfume. The second brimmed with dresses, shoes, and a tailored suit. The third was a treasure chest of transformation. Curling iron, blow dryer, barrettes, polish, razors, even jars of hair remover. A full arsenal. I snapped the lids shut, my chest tight. That's when the phone rang. Jake's voice oozed through the receiver, cold and venomous. "I'm very angry with you, Ryan. I warned you not to move. Now I'll have to hurt you. Just tell me where you are, and we'll talk this out." My blood iced over. He had the number, not the address. "I'll think about it, Jake," I forced out. "We need some space. I'll call you." "You've got 2 days, Squirt," he growled. "Call me or else." The line went dead, and with it, any hesitation I'd been clinging to. I couldn't beat Jake in a fight, but I could outthink him. The first step was survival. I called the phone company, demanded a new unlisted number, then dragged all 3 suitcases into my bedroom. The ritual began. Cream slathered over my body, razors scraping until every trace of hair was gone. An oil-slick bath that left my skin slick and bare. When I rose, I shivered. The air felt sharper against me. I pulled on new panties, sat at the mirror, and unpacked the makeup kit. Amy's lessons came back in fragments, clumsy but serviceable. Foundation, powder, eyeshadow, liner, blush, the colors slowly framing a stranger in the mirror. Digging deeper, I found them. The old birdseed breast forms I'd used years ago. Somehow Mom had saved them. Sliding them into a bra, I felt my chest swell, and with pantyhose, skirt, and blouse layered over, the image sharpened. I slipped into shoes, my heart hammering. The reflection looking back wasn't Ryan. It wasn't Jake's victim. It was someone else entirely. The wig was the final piece, and though it didn't make me beautiful, it erased Ryan enough to leave someone unfamiliar staring back. It wasn't perfection, not even close, but it was enough to spark the possibility. Still, I knew I couldn't carry this alone. Not with Jake prowling somewhere out there, his voice still rattling through my skull. I picked up the phone, called Mom, and asked her to come back for the weekend. After that, I called the police and filed a report. The officer's tone was sympathetic, but her words were the same tired refrain. Until Jake laid his hands on me again and left proof. Their hands were tied. A loophole in the law, she explained. When I told her I planned to hide in plain sight, she asked how. I confessed, voice shaking, about Mom's plan. She didn't laugh. She simply gave me her personal number, told me to call her directly if I needed help. That small gesture steadied me more than anything else had. Back home, Mom and Dad were having their own conversation. Mom's voice was sure, almost smug. He's going to do it. He's resisting on the surface, but you should have seen his eyes. He's probably already trying things on. Dad sighed. You know I'm not thrilled about our son dressing like a girl, but with Jake threatening him, he doesn't think we know about the times after that party, Mom said gently. But I do. And if I'm right, Jake will never connect the dots. This way, Ryan gets protection, and when it's all over, he can just go back to himself. Maybe, Dad muttered, still unconvinced. Meanwhile, I sat in front of my mirror for hours, chasing an illusion. No matter how many times I shifted my makeup or tugged at the wig, I saw the same awkward face. Not ugly, not quite right either. The only comfort was knowing Amy and I were close enough in size that Mom's chosen clothes fit without struggle. The shoes pinched a little, but even that felt more like authenticity than inconvenience. I gave up on the wig eventually, its synthetic hair refusing to bend to my will, and crawled into bed with a knot in my chest, praying Jake wouldn't find me. Morning came with a sharp ring at the doorbell. Groggy, I checked the clock, barely 7. Through the peephole, Mom stood smiling, a bag dangling from her hand. I let her in, and without ceremony, she swept me into her orbit. Let's get you ready, then breakfast. This time, I didn't fight. Under her practiced hands, my makeup softened, balanced, transformed. The clumsy mask I'd created yesterday melted into something startlingly fresh. I recognized the look instantly. It was the same open, youthful face I'd seen on countless college girls. She handed me a purse, watched me slip my wallet inside, then ushered me out the door. The restaurant was ordinary, but every step through it felt like walking a tightrope. My nerves buzzed with fear that someone would see through me, point, laugh, tear down this fragile disguise. Yet no one did. Not a glance, not a whisper. I was just another girl eating eggs with her mom. Over coffee, Mom leaned in, her tone casual, but her eyes sharp. You know, a wig will only get you so far. Why not think about cutting and styling your own hair? Something feminine, easy to manage. I shook my head quickly. If I change my hair, Jake will recognize me. He'll be looking too closely. I'd rather grow it longer, maybe change the color. Something less obvious. She tilted her head, studying me. My hair brushed my collar, full enough to work with, and she wasn't wrong, there was potential there. But fear still gnawed at me, fear of Jake's shadow on every corner. Are you committed to this, Lily? She asked softly, using the name for the first time in years. There are other ways. I set my cup down with more force than I intended. If I quit college, Jake wins. He'll think he has control. But if I stay however I stay, I can finish, graduate, move on. If I'm lucky, he'll never connect Lily to Ryan. And if he does, if he tries something, then he's the one who risks prison, not me. That's protection enough. Mom nodded slowly. Not many women wear wigs every day. They're uncomfortable. Let's at least find a salon. Once they start, I think you'll see things differently. Brows, hair, nails, the works. If you're having doubts, now's the time to walk away. I stayed quiet. I didn't trust my voice, not with the rush of strange anticipation swelling in my chest. My silence was all the answer she needed. Good, she said with a knowing smile. Then let's find a salon. And for the first time, I didn't fight the smile tugging at my own lips. After breakfast, Mom steered the car down side streets near my apartment, scanning storefronts with sharp eyes. We passed one salon after another, but each time she shook her head. Too cheap, too dingy, too obvious. Then she spotted it Karen's. Without hesitation, she pulled into the lot. For the first time in my life, I stepped into the sacred temple of femininity. The air reeked of chemicals and perfume, the soft strains of jazz floating above the clatter of dryers. Women in pale blue smocks fussed over clients in rollers and foil wraps, nails gleaming under lamps. Stylists in white coats moved like practiced dancers, latex gloves snapping, their faces as flawless as their clients longed to be. "Can I help you, ladies?" a voice asked. We turned to see a woman in her 50s, her name tag reading Karen. "Yes," Mom said quickly, taking her arm. "We need a word in private. Lily has a unique problem." Embarrassed, I trailed them into a small office. Mom explained everything, Jake, the threats, the disguise, and asked Karen not only for her help, but her silence. Karen listened, then smiled warmly at me. "Honey, you're not alone. I know at least 3 others on campus like you, and I've had men come here to be done before. It's unusual, but not unheard of. We'll take care of you. Let me get Tina." Tina appeared a few minutes later, young, barely older than me, her smile confident. Karen whispered, "She needs the works," and left me in Tina's hands. I looked back at Mom, who only gave me an encouraging nod. My stomach twisted as Tina gently removed my wig, exposing me, raw and vulnerable, in the middle of this world of polished femininity. She handed me a stack of style books, flipping pages with me until one caught her eye. It was simple, neat, and most importantly, believable. I nodded weakly. Without delay, Tina went to work. The shampoo, the cut, the rollers all routine for her, a revelation for me. She asked about color, and I confessed that I wanted nothing resembling Ryan. She suggested auburn to contrast my green eyes. I agreed, and the dye stung faintly against my scalp as she painted it in. Then came the part no man is prepared for. Wax. Chin, lip, arms, hands all stripped raw in bursts of fire. The lies of TV commercials rang in my ears with every rip. By the time she was finished, I understood pain in a new language. But when she spun me toward the mirror, I forgot the sting. My stubby nails were long, shaped, polished a soft red. My eyebrows were arched, thinned into delicate curves. My skin glowed, smooth and pale. The auburn curls brushed against my ears, tucked back just enough to show off tiny stud earrings that hadn't been there an hour before. My makeup was flawless, subtle, yet transformative. The person staring back at me wasn't Ryan, not even close. She was someone I could imagine walking across campus without suspicion. She wasn't a beauty queen, not even glamorous, but she was real. She belonged. I barely noticed when Mom stepped in. Her breath caught audibly before her lips curved into a smile. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "Jake will never know." I didn't know what to say. The mirror told me enough. I wasn't perfect. I still felt clumsy, like a newborn foal in heels, but I could pass. I would pass. Mom paid the bill, pressing a generous tip into Tina's hand, and even scheduled me for bi-monthly appointments. As we walked out, something new carried me forward. Confidence. For the first time since Jake's threats, I believed I might actually survive this. "Now," Mom said, sliding behind the wheel, "there's one more thing you'll need. Breast forms, the good ones." I hesitated. "Mom, What does Dad really think? After this, I'll be living as a girl full-time. Even at home. He's okay with it? Her eyes softened. He doesn't like it. But he understands. He knows Jake could destroy you in a fight, and the police can't protect you until it's too late. He's talked to our lawyer. He accepts it for now. I nodded slowly. That was enough. The boutique Mom found was small and clinical, the kind of place that didn't waste time with judgment. The woman who worked there didn't blink when she saw my chest, or when Mom handed her the old sacks of birdseed. She simply set to work, measuring, matching skin tones, molding casts. An hour later, with silicone poured and set, she pressed the new forms into place. When she was finished, I stared down in disbelief. My chest rose, full and natural, a modest B cup that looked like it had grown there overnight. No seams, no sag, no hint of fakery. For the first time, I felt the weight not of fear, but of commitment. This was no game, no costume. This was a new life taking shape on my body. The woman at the boutique pressed the forms to my chest with steady hands, explaining in a no-nonsense voice. The adhesive should hold for about 2 months. This latex breathes better than the old kind, so you'll get long wear time. Come back every 8 weeks, I'll remove and clean them, while you treat your skin with a special lotion. Then I'll reattach them. Easy enough? Yes, ma'am, I murmured, fumbling clumsily with the bra straps. Both she and Mom watched me struggle until Mom sighed, fastened the hooks in front, spun the bra around, and tugged it into place. See? Much easier. I pulled my blouse back on, my cheeks burning, while Mom paid the bill. Back at the apartment, we spent hours with the suitcases, trying on outfit after outfit until the floor was littered with cast-offs. Some things pinched, some just looked wrong. But in the end, I had a solid wardrobe. 7 skirts, 5 dresses, 10 blouses, and stacks of tops. The only real gaps were in shoes and lingerie. Every time I moved, my new breasts shifted with me, the sensation both unnerving and thrilling. By the weekend's end, we'd shopped for 3 pairs of shoes, a couple of new bras, and more panties. Mom left Sunday evening, telling me firmly to attend class Monday as if nothing had changed. So I did. I put on a skirt and top, gathered my courage, and walked into class. At first, I felt every eye on me, sure that someone would point, laugh, call me out. But the minutes ticked by and nothing happened. I even switched seats in every class just to break Ryan's old patterns. By the end of the day, the fear began to slip. It all came rushing back when I spotted Jake striding across the lot toward me. His face was twisted with fury, and my stomach dropped. There was nowhere to run. I held my head high, kept walking, forcing calm onto my face while inside my heart hammered. He passed by me, eyes skimming over me without recognition, and kept going. I dove into my car and drove off shaking, then laughing, then almost crying. It had worked. Jake had looked right at me and seen nothing. That night, I called home. Dad answered. When I told him, his voice warmed with relief, though he couldn't resist asking, "Are you sure about this dressing as a girl thing?" "I don't see another way," I told him honestly, "and I don't like it any more than you do." That was almost the truth, because the truth was, I did like it. I always had. That night years ago at the party had left something burning in me, the feel of skirts swishing, perfume lingering on my skin, lipstick's faint taste. Since then, in secret, I'd dressed many times. Never well, never brave enough to leave the house, but enough to know it stirred something deep inside me. Now, Jake's threat gave me the perfect cover to live openly, and Mom had pushed me over the edge. Breasts, styled hair, manicured nails. For the first time, I wasn't doing it furtively. I had approval, I had space, and without the guilt, my hands grew steadier with the makeup brushes, my movements more natural. Within a week, I had the routine down to 45 minutes makeup, hair, clothes, the whole performance. I even started to enjoy it, the quiet satisfaction of watching Lily bloom in the mirror. But then came the real test social life. Two girls in one of my classes, Emma and Hannah, took a shine to me. By midweek, they'd invited me for pizza Saturday night with a group of friends. I tried to smile, tried to hide the spike of terror inside me. They were insistent, their enthusiasm disarming, and before I knew it, I had agreed. All Saturday I fussed, smoothing my skin, checking for stray hairs, agonizing over what to wear. Finally, I settled on a short black skirt, cut straight, 2 inches above the knee, and a satiny emerald blouse that shimmered against my auburn hair. I parked outside the sorority house, pulse racing, and Emma waved me in. "Oh, you look great, Lily!" she gushed, pulling me toward the living room. "Hannah's still getting dressed. Let's wait." We sat together, Emma peppering me with small talk. Where I grew up, what high school I went to, what classes I liked. I told her the truth, carefully edited, and she never once blinked, never asked me the question I feared most. When she ran upstairs to hurry Hannah along, I sat frozen, terrified of being discovered in this minefield of a sorority house. Expulsion would be the mildest of punishments if anyone figured me out here. A few minutes later, Emma and Hannah came down laughing, and we piled into my car. We ended up at a pizza place that was half restaurant, half nightclub music thumping, lights low, energy buzzing. We had barely settled at our table before a pack of guys swarmed us. Emma and Hannah lit up, flirting effortlessly, enjoying themselves. I sat stiff as a board, barely able to speak, panic choking me. 6 years had passed since the last time I'd been in this situation, and back then, I was just a boy playing dress-up at a party. Now I was Lily, out in the open, and the stakes were higher than I could have imagined. The hand on my shoulder startled me. "Hi, I'm Mark. Care to dance?" I'm not a good. It's easy. Come on, I'll show you." Before I could protest further, he had me on the dance floor. I wasn't used to being led. Every time I stumbled, he steadied me effortlessly, even lifting me clear off the ground once, spinning me as if I weighed nothing. My head barely reached his chin, and I was so aware of his size, his strength, the way he carried me across the floor. By the time we left the dance floor, my knees felt weak, not from the dancing, but from the realization that for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one leading. Back at the table, my seat was already claimed by Hannah and Emma's new admirers. Mark touched my hand gently, asking me to join him at his own table. Reluctantly, I agreed. He was polite, neatly dressed, and his dark eyes carried an intensity softened by his easy smile. I clamped my knees together so tightly it hurt, desperate to appear poised and feminine. After half an hour, though, nature demanded its due. Excusing myself, I braved the ladies' room for the very first time. The line was long, the chatter constant, the atmosphere strangely casual. When it was finally my turn, I darted into the stall, heart pounding, then paused at the mirror on the way out to touch up my lipstick just like every other girl. Hannah spotted me on her way in and grinned knowingly. "I see you snagged a good one." "Mark, we're just talking, nothing serious." "Not yet," she teased, disappearing inside. When I returned, Mark covered my hand with his again. We were still talking when the air shifted, my heart lurching at the sight of Jake bearing down on us. "Mark, have you seen that twerp Ryan around anywhere?" Jake demanded, his jaw tight with rage. Mark frowned. "No, I haven't. Why?" "He moved out on me." "So? Get a new roommate. Plenty of guys looking right now." "I'm going to whoop him bad when I find him," Jake growled before storming off. Through it all, his eyes barely grazed me. When they did, they slid down my blouse. The forms, the blouse, the makeup, everything held. He hadn't recognized me. I forced myself to breathe, every nerve alive with the fear of being exposed, yet exhilarated that the disguise had worked under the most dangerous scrutiny yet. "That guy's nuts," I muttered once Jake was gone. "Why would he want to beat up someone just for moving out?" Jake's been a powder keg since childhood, Mark said, shaking his head. If he doesn't get his way, he explodes. Always in trouble for it. I hope he never finds whoever he's looking for. Me too, Mark, me too. Later, as the night wound down, Mark slid his arm around my waist, escorting me to my car. Just before I got in, he pulled me close and kissed me light, but firm enough to leave me rattled. Then he handed me his card. Call me, I'll meet you anywhere. Flustered, I drove off without answering. Emma and Hannah peppered me with questions on the ride back, but I dodged everyone. By the time I shut the apartment door behind me, I was shaking, my thoughts spinning. I was overwhelmed by the crowd, by the dancing, by the taste of Mark's lips. Strong, masculine, so unlike anything I'd known. That night, slipping into my skimpiest baby doll, I dreamed two versions of the same nightmare. Jake finding me. In one, he beat me mercilessly. In the other, Mark stepped between us, saving me. I woke unsettled, caught between dread and a strange, new longing. The next morning, I dressed carefully for church. My best red and black suit, black heels, a crisp white blouse. Nothing extravagant. I slid into a pew midway down, the congregation filling in around me. I'd been there twice before as Ryan. Faces I knew glanced past me now without a flicker of recognition. During the service, I spotted Mark sitting with a woman who could only be his mother, her hair a soft white halo, her eyes alight with kindness. Mark's gaze caught mine, and instinctively I smiled. Afterward, in the aisle, he brought her to me. Mother, this is Lily, the girl I mentioned. Her handshake was firm, her smile warm. Before I could even consider refusing, she clasped my arm and invited me to lunch. Panic rose sharp in my chest, one slip, one wrong gesture, and everything could unravel, but I couldn't say no. Not with her insisting, not with Mark's proud smile beaming at me as he guided us out to the cars. I followed them across town, whispering to myself like a mantra, I am a girl, I'm a girl, over and over, steadying the quiver in my hands. At the table, Mark pulled out the chairs for both of us, every inch the gentleman. Conversation flowed, and soon his mother leaned in, eyes twinkling. So Lily, where are you from? Who are your parents? Tell me everything. I gave her the basics, truths stripped down to essentials. Enough to sound solid. Enough to keep Lily alive. I gave Mark's mother just enough truth to keep her satisfied. Amy was in the Navy, I told her. I mentioned my age, where we lived little things that revealed nothing dangerous about who I really was. She seemed pleased, her smile warm, and by the time the meal ended, I was relieved to have survived without a single slip. Mark walked me to my car, and though I'd meant to head back to the apartment to change, on impulse, I drove straight home to see my parents, still dressed as Lily. Pulling into the driveway, I caught myself adjusting my lipstick in the rearview mirror. The skirt rode up as I stepped out of the car, showing more leg than I intended, and there was Dad, framed in the doorway, staring in silence. I smoothed the fabric down, lifted my purse, walked up to him, and without a word kissed his cheek. His eyes widened, but he didn't pull back. He opened the door for me, bewildered. Mom appeared almost at once. Oh, Lily, how nice to see you! And you look so nice, Dad stammered, still trying to reconcile what he was seeing. You look real nice. He motioned awkwardly. Are you sure about this? I mean, you look so… She looks beautiful, Mom cut in sharply, rescuing me. And you know it, or you wouldn't be stumbling over your words. Why don't you go up and change, honey? She added gently. Jeans, maybe some slacks. You'll be more comfortable. I slipped upstairs to Amy's room, undressed, and tried on a stack of jeans and slacks. Every pair fit. I settled on tight jeans, a pink pullover, and white sneakers, folding the extras neatly. The fit hugged my hips, the padding shaping me into soft curves. Smiling to myself, I went downstairs. Over a snack, I mentioned casually, that I'd met someone from town, Mark and his mother. When I said her last name, Dad nearly choked. Lily! Do you have any idea who she is? No? Why? She's one of the wealthiest women in the area. Her family owns half of downtown. If she ever finds out the truth. He left the thought hanging, grim. But I didn't lie, I argued. I just didn't correct her. She assumed I was a girl. That's on her. And now that you both know, if she calls, you can back me up. Nothing to fear. Mom leaned in, nodding. She's right. Lily never claimed to be a girl. The woman just assumed. We can protect her by agreeing. That's the truth. Dad had no response to that, only a reluctant grunt. The rest of the day was lighter. Before I left, Mom and I raided Amy's closet again, packing skirts, sweaters, tops, even a coat. I drove back to the apartment late, jeans still on, my back seat loaded with clothes. Monday slipped by quickly, but that afternoon, an old fear came back. My driver's license. Ryan's name and face still stared back from that little card. And sooner or later, that would ruin everything. So I drove straight to the police station and asked for Sergeant Emily Ward. Tall, striking, with bright blonde hair, she welcomed me in, but I saw the flicker of recognition in her eyes. I'm Lily, I said quickly, nervous but steady. We talked before. You told me to call if I needed help. I thought it might be better to stop by. Her brows arched. Then she smiled faintly. So you're Lily. Stand up for me, will you? I obeyed, turning when she gestured, trying not to tremble. I've seen a lot of guys try this, she said at last. But you look fantastic. Here's what we'll do. Take the test again, and I'll get you a license to match how you live now. It was almost laughably simple. 20 minutes for the test, 20 more for paperwork, and a photo, and I walked out with a brand new driver's license that said female. I felt bulletproof. With that card in my wallet, there was nothing Jake could take from me. I wasn't a pinup, not glamorous. But I blended. I belonged. I thanked Emily, took her card, and headed home. Parking around the corner, I rounded the block only to see Jake planted right by my door. My breath caught, but I straightened my skirt, inhaled deep, and walked past him. Hey, you live here? Yes, I answered, sweet and steady. Does a scumbag named Ryan live here? There are no scumbags living here at all. Now let me pass. I slipped by him, perfume trailing in the air, unlocked the door and shut it fast. Inside, safe, I collapsed against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. Peeking through the blinds, I saw him in his car, just waiting. The phone rang, jarring me. It was Mark, and I'd never been so grateful to hear his voice. I told Mark about Jake, how he'd been hanging around. How he scared me, though, not the deeper truth. Within 10 minutes, Mark was at my door, but instead of coming in, he stopped outside to face Jake. I watched through the window as voices rose, then exploded into a shouting match. Finally, Jake stomped off, tires squealing, leaving the parking lot clouded in smoke. When Mark stepped inside, I threw my arms around him, clinging in relief. What did you say to make him so mad? He grinned slightly, steadying me. Easy, Lily. I told him he was bothering my girlfriend, and he needed to leave. He's convinced some guy named Ryan lives here, but obviously, he's wrong. He knows it now. I swallowed, heart still racing. Thanks for coming. If he thought I was Ryan, he might have attacked me. He wouldn't, Mark said firmly. Jake's a bully, paranoid, but not stupid. If he laid a hand on you, he knows the cops would throw him in jail so fast his head would spin. His eyes softened. You okay now? I nodded, whispering, Yeah. Thanks, Mark. That's when he pulled me close, arms strong around me, and kissed me. Not fiery, not dizzying, but real. My first. I hadn't expected to like it, but I did. His lips were warm, his smile broad when I glanced up, startled. What? I asked, embarrassed by the heat rising in my cheeks. He only chuckled. You made a good impression on my mom. She's planning to call yours lunch, something like that. That's nice, I managed, uncertain but thankful I'd told my parents about meeting her. I have to go, he said. I'll call later this week. If Jake shows up again, call me. Anytime. Got it? Got it. I kissed his cheek lightly, and he left. Only when I was alone did it hit me. I had acted like a girl the whole time. From the second I saw Jake, to the moment Mark walked out, every movement, every word had been Lily's, not Ryan's. And I liked it. More than I'd admitted, even to myself. His kiss lingered on my lips, replaying in my mind. I wanted more. Grinning, I slipped into a nightgown, marveling at how natural this had become. Weeks passed quickly. Mark and I talked twice a week, spent Friday nights at the movies, and I grew more confident in Lily's skin. I blended in so well that Hannah invited me to a pajama party, but I declined. Being among a crowd of half-dressed women was a risk I couldn't take. I knew if I truly wanted to belong, I would need more than clothes and padding. A woman's body hips, narrow waist, smooth skin was what stood between me and full acceptance. By the end of term, Mark and I were closer than I'd ever imagined. He wanted more, but I drew the line, telling him I wouldn't give myself until marriage. He hated it, but accepted it. My mannerisms were second nature, now hair falling to my shoulders, nails shining thanks to Paige at the salon. As I packed for the holidays, I didn't bother with neutral clothes. Every piece was feminine, except for one pair of jeans. I'd even learned online how to hide what I hated most about myself, forcing me to sit like a woman always. My maleness was buried, and I didn't miss it. I had nearly everything in the car when the screech of tires broke the calm. A vehicle shot across the lot, swerving suddenly. The impact was brutal. My car slammed into me, pinning me beneath as metal crushed the air from my lungs. I hit the pavement hard, dazed, helpless. Jake loomed over me, eyes blazing, a knife glinting in his hand. He crouched close, voice venomous. Listen, bitch, Mark isn't here to save you. Tell me where Ryan is now, or I'll cut you. Terror surged through me, but I forced my voice to quiver, to sound small. I don't know him. I don't even know who you're talking about. The blade kissed my neck, biting just enough to sting. His sneer twisted darker, rage feeding on my denial. My heart thudded wildly. I knew I was seconds from death. I closed my eyes, bracing for it. But it never came. A heavy thunk cracked the air. Jake grunted, the knife clattering to the ground as his body slumped beside me. Through the blur of shock, I saw a man with a club raised high, standing guard. Others rushed forward, someone jacked up the car, hands pulling me free. Scraped, bruised, but miraculously intact, I staggered upright, breathless. Jake lay sprawled, unconscious, while the stranger calmly spoke with a cop. EMTs guided me into an ambulance. I walked, refusing the siren, but inside I was unraveling. Because beneath the relief, the fear, the blood pounding in my ears, a new dread gnawed at me. If the hospital admitted me, they'd see. They'd know. Everything I had built as Lily could shatter in an instant, and I had no control over what would happen next. The admitting nurse's kindness steadied me more than the bandages. She even let me phone home before seeing a doctor. Dad's voice sharpened with alarm the second I said hospital, and he and Mom promised they were on their way. Then came the form, stark and official in my trembling hand. I paused only once before I wrote Lily across the line. The nurse helped me change into a flimsy gown, folded my blouse and skirt neatly aside, and left me waiting. Nearly an hour passed before the curtain swished open, and a young, pretty, exhausted doctor stepped in. She asked me to remove my bra. My heart plummeted. The fastener clicked free, the cups sagged forward, and my silicone form stood exposed. I braced for the inevitable look, but she didn't even blink. She finished her exam, patched me up, handed me a prescription, and told me to dress. That was when Mom burst into the room with Dad close behind. Relief washed over their faces once they saw I was intact. I told them what had happened. Mom helped me back into my clothes, while Dad listened grimly. A police officer stopped by, briefed him on Jake's arrest, felonious assault with intent. Jake wasn't walking free anytime soon. Back at the apartment, with the door locked and the air finally still, Dad asked the question I'd dreaded. Well, now that Jake isn't a problem, when can I expect to see my son again? My eyes darted to Mom. She only smiled, nodded. She knew. She always knew. Dad sat heavily across from me. You're not going to change back, are you? I shook my head, mute, afraid. You're not a female. You can't give birth. Mom can't either, I snapped, then bit down hard on regret. There are plenty of women my age who can't. That doesn't make them less female. That's not what I meant, Dad's voice cracked. You're a boy! Maybe at the start, I said, tears threatening. But not now. Not ever again. I can't. I bolted into my bedroom, slammed the door, and cried into my pillow until exhaustion left me hollow. An hour later, with my makeup repaired, I rejoined them. Mom had coffee waiting. Her first question blindsided me. Have you and Mark had sex? What? No. How could we? And it's none of your... Her voice snapped like a whip. Don't you ever talk to me like that, Lillian Marie? I shrank into silence, chastened. We all know you can take care of Mark without taking off your panties, she continued coldly, which only proves how deeply feminine you've become inside as well as out. So tell us plainly, is it your intention to become a woman? Yes or no? Yes, I whispered, the only truth left. Dad slumped, wounded by the word, but there was no denying it. I was already living as Lily in every way, my walk, my voice, the way I loved. Even the intimacy Mark and I had shared, clumsy and tender, had carried me further than Dad could bear to imagine. He tried to regain footing by talking about the wreck. Your car's totaled, Lily. We'll have it towed to the dealer. You'll get another. Then he fixed me with a stare that burned. I guess it's your life. You're old enough to decide. I'll support you, but this isn't what I planned for my son. Dad, I said softly, this isn't what I planned either. But it's what was meant to be. They took me home for Christmas, and the pile of gifts at my feet told me everything: dresses, skirts, slips, jewelry, perfume. Amy was home on leave, and from the moment she saw me, she treated me as her sister. No hesitation. Even Dad, when Mark and his mother came to visit, introduced me as his daughter. I caught Amy winking, smirking at the fact that I had a boyfriend. I supposed I did. From then on, my family accepted me as Lily. I started medication, my own small breasts budding, a modest shape developing. Mark and I lasted nearly a year before drifting apart, but by then I no longer needed him as proof of who I was. Life is steady now, full of its own quiet joys. I'm not hiding anymore. I stopped surviving in plain sight. Now I live.